In recent years, non-profit organizations around the world have faced operational and legal restrictions due to counter-terrorism regulations. For example, banks have blocked or closed accounts of organizations working in conflict zones. Laws have been enacted to restrict foreign funding or to introduce burdensome governance and audit requirements. This has had a negative effect on non-profit organizations' abilities to operate. Although many governments use these laws as excuses to suppress dissenting voices, these provisions stem from global requirements developed by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. The Financial Action Task Force is an international policy-making body established by the G7 in 1989 to combat money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. It has adopted 40 detailed recommendations to governments. Recommendation 8 sets standards for non-profit organizations. Recommendation 8 requires that laws and regulations that govern non-profit organizations are reviewed so as to prevent non-profit organizations from being abused for the financing of terrorism. The hypothesis promoted by the Financial Action Task Force is that terrorists hide behind CSOs or use them to funnel money, requiring states to enact a range of countermeasures. Because of the Financial Action Task Force, laws designed to criminalize support for terrorist organizations are increasingly linked to regulations governing non-profit organizations. These restrictions are often justified by citing the requirements of the FATF regime, specifically FATF Recommendation 8 on non-profit organizations, the interpretive note to Recommendation 8, and the Best Practices paper. As a result, the application of Recommendation 8 in many cases has led to the shrinking of the financial, operational, and political space of civic space around the world. Uganda is one of the countries enforcing anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regulations and has enacted legislation with a direct effect on the work of non-profit organizations in Uganda, including the Anti-Terrorism Act 2002, the Anti-Money Laundering Act 2013, the Non-Governmental Organizations Act 2016, and the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Act 2017, among others. In order to mitigate overregulation of NGOs in Uganda using FATF-inspired legislation and the possible misuse of Recommendation 8, the National NGO Working Group on FATF in Uganda commits to provide a coordinated effort to create awareness on AML-CTF legislation in Uganda and a platform for NGOs in Uganda to dialogue with key stakeholders on issues relating to overregulation and selective implementation of AML-CTF regulations. This message is brought to you by Defenders Protection Initiative, DPI. Visit our website on www.defendersprotection.org for more information.